Luna Savage had hair the color of spilled blood. Not metaphorically speaking, mind you, but literally the exact shade of crimson that the prissy Valoran nobles associate with violence and death. Which, come to think of it, was probably why they found her so deeply unsettling. The 16-year-old human sat in the back corner of advanced xenobiology, her wild red curls cascading down to her waist like a waterfall of liquid fire. She'd been growing for 8 years, ever since her parents died in the mining accident on Kepler 442b. The hair was all she had left of her mother, who possessed the same impossible shade of red that seemed to glow with its own inner light. Professor Zivek droned on about symbiotic relationships between gas giant organisms, his 6 arms gesticulating wildly as his translator struggled to keep pace with his rapid-fire Centauri dialect. Luna barely paid attention. She'd learned more about xenobiology in her first week on a Deathworld than these pampered academy brats would learn in their entire sheltered lives. Miss Savage, Zivek's voice cut through her daydream like a plasma cutter through titanium. Perhaps you'd care to enlighten us about the reproductive cycles of Europan ice worms? Luna looked up lazily, her green eyes reflecting the classroom's artificial lighting, like a predator caught in a spotlight. They don't reproduce, Professor. They clone themselves when they reach critical mass, usually after consuming enough organic matter to double their body weight. The process takes approximately 72 hours and requires sub-zero temperatures to prevent cellular breakdown during mitosis. A few of her classmates shifted uncomfortably. They hated when she knew things they didn't, especially when she delivered the information with that particular tone that suggested she'd personally watched ice worms clone themselves while fighting for survival on some frozen hellscape. Which, of course, she had. Zivek's mandibles clicked in what might have been approval or annoyance. Correct. Moving on. But Luna's attention had already drifted to the whispered conversation happening 3 rows ahead of her. Prince Kaine of Allura 7 was huddled with his usual pack of sycophants, their perfect blue skin gleaming under the classroom lights like polished marble. As the crown prince of one of the core world's most influential systems, Kaine commanded respect and fear in equal measure from his fellow students. He also possessed a kind of casual cruelty that only came from a lifetime of absolute privilege. Disgusting red mane, he was saying, his voice pitched just loud enough for Luna to hear. It's like she rolled around in a slaughter pit before coming to class. His friends tittered obediently. Vera Shimmerlake, daughter of the Andromedan Trade Consortium, tossed her own perfectly coiffed silver hair. I heard Deathworlders mark territory with bodily fluids. Maybe that's what the color represents. More laughter. Luna's fingers tightened around her stylus, but she kept her expression neutral. She'd learned long ago that reacting to their provocations only encouraged them. Someone should do something about it, Kaine continued, his violet eyes glittering with malice. It's unsanitary. Probably violates the Academy health codes. What are you suggesting? Asked Dex Starbright, a Regellian whose family controlled half the shipping lanes in the Outer Rim. Kaine's smile was the kind that preceded declarations of war. I'm suggesting that if the Deathworld Savage won't take care of her appearance voluntarily, perhaps we should help her. The bell chimed, signaling the end of class. Students began filing out in their usual social hierarchies, with core world nobility leading the procession and colony kids trailing behind like an afterthought. Luna packed her materials slowly, waiting for the room to empty before making her exit. She should have known they'd be waiting for her. The ambush came in the dormitory common area, when most students were either in class or off-planet for the weekend. Luna had just settled into her favorite reading alcove with a datapad containing research on Terran desert survival techniques, when 4 figures emerged from behind the decorative plasma fountain. Kaine led the group, his ceremonial academy uniform pristine as always. Behind him came Vera, Dex, and Tor Voidwalker, a Neptunian whose psychic abilities made him invaluable for this kind of coordinated harassment. Well, Kaine drawled, his accent carrying the refined tones of someone who'd never spoken to anyone below his social station. If it isn't our resident barbarian, polluting the common area with her presence. Luna looked up from her data pad with studied indifference. Prince Kaine. To what do I owe the displeasure? Such hostility, Vera cooed, her silver eyes dancing with amusement. We're simply here to help you with a little grooming issue. That's when Luna noticed the molecular scissors in Tor's hand. The device was designed for precision cutting at the atomic level, capable of slicing through virtually any material with perfect accuracy, including hair. You see, Kaine continued, circling her chair like a shark sending blood, the faculty has received complaints about your hygiene standards. Apparently, some students find your appearance disturbing. Luna's grip tightened on her data pad. I wasn't aware that hair color fell under Academy regulations. Oh, it's not the color, Dex laughed. It's the length, and the texture, and the way it seems to move on its own when you're angry, which was actually true, though Luna had never figured out why. Deathworld genetics were weird like that. So we're here to help, Kaine announced, producing a restraint field generator from his jacket. Hold still, and this will be over quickly. The restraint field activated before Luna could react, pinning her to the chair with invisible bands of force. She tested the bonds experimentally, already knowing escape was impossible. Tor's psychic abilities were keeping her from accessing the combat protocols that had kept her alive on 3 different death worlds. Now then, Kaine said, accepting the molecular scissors from Tor with ceremonial gravity. Let's see about fixing that hair problem. He moved behind her chair, gathering her crimson curls in one pale blue hand. The scissors hummed to life, their cutting edge glowing with contained energy. Any last words before we civilize you? He asked. Luna turned her head as far as the restraints would allow, meeting his violet eyes with her own emerald gaze. When she spoke, her voice carried the kind of quiet intensity that made smart people take several steps backward. You know what the funny thing is, Prince? She said conversationally. On Kepler, 442b, we had these creatures called saber cats. Beautiful animals, really. Silky black fur, graceful movement, absolutely stunning to watch. Kaine hesitated, clearly not expecting a nature documentary. What's your point? The point, Luna continued, her tone remaining perfectly pleasant, is that saber cats were gorgeous right up until they ripped your throat out. Funny how the most dangerous predators are often the most beautiful. She paused, letting the words sink in, almost like nature designed them that way on purpose. Kaine's jaw tightened. Enough philosophy lessons from the savage. Hold still. The molecular scissors bit through her hair like a hot knife through butter. 8 years of growth fell to the floor in crimson cascades, each severed lock representing a memory, a connection, a piece of her mother's legacy. Luna watched it fall with perfect calm. When they were finished, her hair barely reached her shoulders, the ragged edges testimony to their casual cruelty. Kaine stepped back to admire his handiwork, the scissors still humming in his hand. Much better, he announced. Now you look almost civilized. The restraint field deactivated, freeing Luna from the chair. She stood slowly, brushing hair fragments from her uniform with mechanical precision. Her movements were controlled, economical, carrying none of the wild energy that had characterized her before. Thank you, she said politely. The 4 nobles exchanged uncertain glances. They'd expected tears, rage, maybe an attempt at violence that would justify calling security. They hadn't expected gratitude. You're welcome, Vera said hesitantly. Luna smiled then, and several warning bells just started ringing in their genetically enhanced brains. But privilege had a way of deadening survival instincts, and none of them recognized the expression for what it truly was. The smile of a predator selecting its prey. I really appreciate what you've done here today, Luna continued. Her voice wore with apparent sincerity. You've taught me something important about how things work in civilized society. Glad we could help, Kaine said, though he was beginning to look distinctly uncomfortable. Oh, you have, Luna assured him. See, where I come from, when someone damages your property, you get compensation, usually in the form of equivalent damage to something they value. Is that a threat? Dex demanded, puffing up like an offended peacock. Luna tilted her head thoughtfully. More of an educational exchange, really. You've shown me how core world nobility handles disputes. Now I'd like to demonstrate how we handle them on the death worlds. That's when Prince Kaine made his first serious mistake of the day. He laughed. You, he chortled, gesturing dismissively with the molecular scissors. You're going to teach us something? A backwater colony, brat who probably lived in a cave before coming here. Actually, Luna said conversationally, I lived in the wreckage of a crashed terraforming station, much more sophisticated than a cave. The point stands, Kaine continued, his confidence fully restored. You're outnumbered, outgunned, and completely out of your league. What exactly do you think you're going to do to us? Luna's smile widened slightly. I'm going to cut off your arm. The silence that followed was so complete that the ambient hum of the station's life support systems sounded like a roaring waterfall. For the galaxy's most privileged young people stared at the Deathworld girl as if she'd just announced her intention to juggle live grenades. Excuse me? Kaine said faintly. Your arm, Luna repeated helpfully. I'm going to cut it off. Probably the left one, since that's what you used to hold my hair while you destroyed it. Vera let out a nervous giggle. She's joking. She has to be joking. I really don't joke about dismemberment, Luna said seriously. It's kind of a cultural thing. We Deathworlders tend to be very literal when it comes to threats of violence. Kaine brandished the molecular scissors like a weapon. You're insane if you think you can take all four of us. Oh, I'm not going to fight all four of you, Luna clarified. That would be inefficient. I'm going to kill 3 of you immediately, then take my time with you, Prince. Really savor the moment, you know? The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Tor's psychic abilities were apparently picking up something from Luna's surface thoughts that was making him back toward the exit with increasing urgency. Tor. Vera called. What's wrong? The Neptunian's face had gone pale beneath his blue-tinted skin. We need to leave. Now! Don't be ridiculous. Kaine snapped. She's one girl. What's the worst she could do? Which, as any Deathworlder could have told him, was exactly the wrong question to ask. Luna's hand moved to her belt, where a small device hung next to her Academy identification badge. It looked innocuous enough, just a simple metal cylinder about the size of a stylus. It was, in fact, a survival tool she crafted from the remains of her parents' mining equipment. The blade was monomolecular tungsten carbide, sharp enough to cut through starship hull plating and completely invisible to standard security scanners. The worst I could do? Luna mused, her fingers closing around the device. Well, that's an interesting question. The cylinder telescoped into a handle as she drew it, the blade extending with a whisper of displaced air. In the space between one heartbeat and the next, Luna Savage was no longer a traumatized Academy student. She was something far more dangerous. She was a Deathworld predator who had just been given a target. What happened next would later be studied in military academies across 3 sectors as a perfect example of why you never corner a Deathworld predator. Luna moved like liquid lightning, her shortened crimson hair whipping around her face as she closed the distance to Dex Starbright in 2 fluid steps. The Regellian had approximately 0.3 seconds to register the monomolecular blade before it carved through his throat with surgical precision. He dropped without a sound, his silver blood pooling on the pristine Academy floor. Vera's scream died in her throat as Luna spun, the blade catching the light as it traced a perfect arc through the air. The Andromedan noble tried to run, but Deathworld reflexes were operating on an entirely different timescale than civilized genetics. The blade found the gap between Vera's 3rd and 4th vertebrae with the kind of accuracy that only came from a lifetime of killing to survive. 2 down. 7 seconds elapsed. Tor was backing toward the exit, his psychic abilities hammering uselessly against Luna's mind. Deathworlders, it turned out, had natural resistance to mental manipulation. Something about constantly being on the edge of death tended to create exceptionally strong mental barriers. Please, the Neptunian whispered, his blue hands raised in surrender. I was just following orders. I never wanted to hurt you. Luna paused, tilting her head with predatory curiosity. You know what's funny about that excuse? My parents probably said the same thing when the mining overseers worked them to death. The blade found his heart before he could respond. 15 seconds total. 3 corpses. 1 terrified prince who was suddenly discovering that his royal blood didn't make him bulletproof, or blade-proof, as the case might be. Now then, Luna said conversationally, turned to face Kaine with the same pleasant smile she'd worn throughout the massacre. I believe we were discussing compensation for property damage. Kaine's violet eyes were wide with shock and terror, the molecular scissors trembling in his grip like a leaf in a hurricane. You're completely insane. Actually, I'm perfectly sane, Luna corrected, advancing slowly across the blood-soaked floor. Insane would be letting you walk away after what you did. This is just pragmatic problem-solving. The Academy will execute you for this. Kaine backed against the wall, his royal composure cracking like cheap armor. You can't just murder core world nobility and expect to survive. Luna laughed, and the sound held no warmth whatsoever. Execute me? Prince, I've been executed 3 times already. Twice by environmental hazards, and once by hostile wildlife. Clearly, I'm very difficult to kill. She was close enough now that Kaine could see the details of her face. The small scar along her left cheek from a crystal spider's claw. The slight calluses on her hands from years of manual labor. The complete absence of fear in her emerald eyes. Besides, Luna continued, who says anyone's going to find out it was me? Kaine's back at the wall, leaving him nowhere else to retreat. Security cameras, witnesses, forensic evidence. Security cameras can be disabled by electromagnetic pulse, Luna said, producing a small device from her belt and triggering it. The room's monitoring systems died with a shower of sparks. Witnesses can be eliminated. She gestured at the 3 corpses. And forensic evidence can be altered. The molecular scissors in Kaine's hand suddenly didn't seem like much of a weapon against someone who just carved through 3 trained fighters in under 20 seconds. What do you want? He whispered. I told you already, Luna said patiently. Compensation. You damaged something that belonged to me, so now I'm going to damage something that belongs to you. My father will pay whatever you ask. Credits, ships, entire star systems if necessary. Luna shook her head. I'm not interested in your family's money, Prince. I want justice, the kind that comes with screaming. Kaine tried to raise the scissors, but his hands were shaking too badly to maintain a steady grip. You're a monster. I'm a survivor, Luna corrected. There's a difference, though I understand why sheltered nobility might have trouble distinguishing between the two. She reached out with her free hand and gently plucked the molecular scissors from his nerveless fingers. The device was beautiful in its simplicity, all flowing curves and perfect engineering. Exactly the kind of tool that could perform microsurgery or brutal amputation with equal efficiency. You know, Luna mused, examining the scissors with professional interest, these are much nicer than the tools I usually work with. My equipment tend to be more improvised. Sharpened metal, jury-rigged energy cells, that sort of thing. Please, Kaine whimpered. I'm sorry. I'll never bother you again. I'll transfer to another academy, another sector. You'll never see me again. Oh, but that's where you're wrong, Luna said sadly. See, you've taught me something important today about how core world society operates. It's all about power dynamics and social hierarchies. The strong prey on the weak until someone stronger comes along. She activated the molecular scissors, their cutting edge beginning to glow with contained energy. The problem is, I'm not weak. I've never been weak. I just hadn't bothered to demonstrate my capabilities because I was trying to fit in, trying to be civilized. Luna grabbed Kaine's left wrist with her free hand, her grip like a steel trap. The prince tried to pull away, but Deathworld muscle density was approximately 3 times that of standard human genetics. But you show me that civilization is just a thin veneer over the same old predator-prey relationships that govern all life in the universe, she continued, positioning the scissors at his shoulder joint. So thank you for that lesson. Wait! Kaine screamed. There has to be another way. Some kind of compromise. Luna paused, considering. Actually, know what? You're right. This is unnecessarily brutal, even by Deathworld standards. Hope flickered in Kaine's violet eyes. Yes, exactly. We can work something out, find a peaceful solution. Absolutely, Luna agreed. I'll just cut off your hand instead. The molecular scissors bit through flesh and bone like they were cutting air. Kaine's scream echoed off the walls as his left hand hit the floor with a wet thud, silver blood spraying across Luna's face in arterial patterns. There, she said cheerfully, cauterizing the wound with the scissors' energy edge to prevent him from bleeding out. Much more civilized. A hand for 8 years of hair seems like a fair trade, don't you think? Kaine had collapsed against the wall, clutching his cauterized stump and sobbing. You're insane. Completely insane. I prefer justice-oriented, Luna said, cleaning the scissors on Vera's expensive academy uniform, though I suppose perspective is everything. She knelt beside the whimpering prince, her voice taking on the tone of someone explaining basic mathematics to a particularly slow child. Here's what's going to happen next, she said. You're going to tell everyone that this was a tragic accident. Equipment malfunctioned during an unsupervised training session. These things happen at prestigious academies, especially when students think they're above safety protocols. Kaine nodded frantically, tears streaming down his perfect blue cheeks. Good, Luna continued, because if anyone comes looking for a different explanation, I'll have to provide one. And my explanation will involve demonstrating exactly what a Deathworld predator can do when she stops pretending to be civilized. She stood, looking down at the crown prince of Allura 7, like he was something unpleasant she'd scraped off her shoe. Do we understand each other? Yes, Kaine whispered. Yes, we understand each other. Excellent. Luna walked to the common area's cleaning station and began washing the blood from her hands with mechanical efficiency. Oh, and Prince, if you ever cut anyone's hair again without permission, I'll come back and finish what I started today. She gathered up her severed locks from the floor, bundling them carefully in a cloth bag. Even damaged, they were still part of her mother's legacy. Maybe she could weave them into something useful. Where are you going? Kaine asked weakly. Luna paused at the door, looking back at the scene of carnage with mild satisfaction. 3 corpses, 1 mutilated prince, and enough blood to redecorate the entire common area in shades of silver and crimson. To file a complaint with Academy administration about unsafe equipment, she said pleasantly. Apparently, some students have been having accidents with molecular scissors. Very tragic. She walked out, leaving Prince Kaine alone with his pain and the dawning realization that he just learned why Deathworlders were classified as a restricted species in 17 different sectors. The security report filed 3 hours later described a tragic training accident involving malfunctioning equipment and inadequate supervision. 4 students have been injured, 3 fatally, during what appeared to be an unauthorized weapons demonstration in the dormitory common area. Prince Kaine of Allura 7 was listed in stable condition following emergency surgical amputation of his left hand. He claimed to have no memory of the events leading up to the accident, attributing his amnesia to trauma and shock. The Academy's investigation found no evidence of foul play. Luna Savage received a formal commendation for her quick thinking in cauterizing Prince Kaine's wound and preventing fatal blood loss. She accepted the award with appropriate humility, her newly shortened hair framing her face like a crimson halo. The next semester, enrollment in xenobiology courses increased by 300%. Apparently, students were suddenly very interested in learning about Deathworld ecosystems and the creatures that thrived in them. Luna found this development amusing. She also found it convenient that her new reputation meant she rarely had to wait in line for anything. Students tended to step aside when they saw her coming, their eyes drawn to her shortened hair and the small scars visible on her hands. The smart ones recognized predator markings when they saw them. The really smart ones made sure to stay out of her way entirely, which was exactly how Luna preferred it. After all, she had studying to do. The galaxy was full of dangerous places and dangerous creatures, and she intended to be ready for all of them, including the ones that looked like civilized nobility but had the souls of bullies. Those were often the most dangerous predators of all. But as Luna had recently demonstrated, every predator could become prey if you knew where to bite. And Deathworlders always knew where to bite. The